So, I've received one or two comments asking me if I'm still reviewing this season of the L Word Generation Q, and no, I'm not. To be quite honest with you guys, I'm sick of it and I wish it would go away. And I don't say that because I get some kind of joy over punching down on this show or seeing people fail. I say it because I'm frustrated and disappointed with what has happened to a once very beloved lesbian production. And I'm especially disappointed that things have taken this kind of a turn after season 2, which to me actually showed some promise. I mean, I'm not claiming season 2 to be well written at all, but it was certainly entertaining. And as some of you know, I didn't actually review season 1 in much detail because, gosh, I just wasn't that into season 1, but I did cover season 2 quite extensively because to me that is when the show became really interesting and entertaining. Given that was due to the pandemic and the writers being forced to work with what they had, you know, creating certain storylines and putting certain characters together, which wouldn't have happened under normal circumstances. So really, I can't even sit here and say that season 2 was a conscious improvement, but for whatever reason, they got lucky in season 2, and instead of kind of utilizing what they got lucky with and bringing that into season 3, which would have kept the show interesting and grown their viewership, instead, they did a complete 180 and destroyed absolutely everything that was remotely interesting about this show within the first couple of episodes of season 3. I truly believe that this show has been run into the ground by Marja Lewis Ryan. I do. Through stubbornness, through a lack of talent, and a lack of social awareness. And it's clear to me at this stage that she's never going to take on board any of the criticisms. She well and truly doesn't give a fuck. She knows best, and what's best according to her is flogging a dead horse until there's nothing left. It's just not going to improve for as long as she is in charge, and those are just the facts. And I think you can hear from what I'm saying that there's no point in me continuing to suffer through this show and review it. Because A, I'm not enjoying it anymore. Again, season 2 wasn't well written, but I can't sit here and say that I didn't enjoy it because I absolutely did. And that was the difference between then and now. You know, it was a bad show, but there were elements of season 2 that I really enjoyed. So I didn't mind kind of putting up with all the bad stuff alongside the stuff that I enjoyed. But now they've taken the stuff that I've enjoyed away and it's just left with the badness. And that's the difference between then and now, you know? And B, I just sound like a stuck record talking about how bad the writing is, how tired the storylines are, how stale the characters are. Pet and Gigi took all the chemistry and the excitement with them when they left. And the show hasn't gotten better, it's just gotten worse. It's like watching an animal die slowly. It's really painful. And what's frustrating is that at any point in the last 3 seasons, they could have introduced new and interesting characters who actually had chemistry with some of the other cast members. They could have taken a serious and intelligent approach to the writing, the dialogue, the storytelling. They could have made changes which may have kept Jennifer and Sepideh around. I mean, they could have done that at any stage in the past 3 seasons, and they're not interested. I am shocked it's gone on for 3 seasons. I am. The only reason I can think of as to why it's gone on for 3 seasons is I imagine this show is relatively cheap to produce in comparison to a lot of other shows. And I also suspect they may receive funding because of the diversity factor within the show. So, I mean, it's certainly not getting renewed because of glowing reviews or because it's much loved by the fan base. So I can only really conclude that it's due to financial reasons. I also know that Marja Lewis Ryan comes from quite a privileged background. I believe she's mentioned it once or twice in interviews. And she very much got to where she is because of connections and financial privilege. It's definitely not talent. So again, it's possible the reason that she herself has been kept around and not replaced is also financial, or because of who she knows. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how it looks from the outside. This might not be a popular opinion with other people who, you know, watch the show or have watched the show, but I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. I don't like that the show moved its focus away from women and from women who have relationships with other women. Yes, the L Word has always explored things such as bisexuality. They've always had a token straight character or whatever, you know, that much is true. But the core of the show, the main focus was always on women, and it was on women who had relationships with other women. I mean, that's what made it unique. Generation Q has visibly kind of shifted away from that and made the show inclusive of men and male sexuality. And those two things are something that the world of media is absolutely flooded with. So my question is, why did they feel the need to take a show that was about lesbianism and make it into that? If the goal was to kind of shift the focus onto queerness, they should have made a completely fresh show which had no association with the original L Word. Because queerness and lesbianism is not the same thing. There's no ambiguity to same-sex attraction. Queerness is ambiguity. So when you make a show about queerness, it is just literally a free-for-all. I mean, it is. And honestly, even in terms of representation, a lot of Generation Q just comes across to me as empty virtue signaling. So many of the characters in this show feel two-dimensional, and it feels to me like they're there to kind of tick a box as opposed to being an actual fleshed out person who we can get to know and care about. A lot of it just feels kind of cheap and forced. And just because a show has representation, that doesn't mean that the show is A, automatically a good show because of said representation, and B, it doesn't make that representation automatically good representation either. And I think if we're honest, I mean, the original show wasn't perfect. Of course it wasn't. I've criticised it quite a lot on this channel. It was not perfect, but never once did I ever feel like any of the characters, main or side characters in the original show, were there to tick a box. Like, never did I feel like that. I felt like I was actually watching real people, you know? Not so much with Generation Q. Not so much. So yes, those are the reasons that I'm no longer watching the show and why I'm on strike with my reviews. That is why. That said, I will be covering Bet and Tina's wedding just because I have to support my baby. I have to support Jennifer. I love her so much. I do. Wherever she goes, I go, you know. So I'm not quite completely free of this show, but once the wedding is done, I will be. I will be released back into the wild. Okay. I have heard things about Gigi returning, and I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. But to be honest, even if the show gets another season, and it's kind of looking likely that it will get another season, and even if Gigi does return, I'm still not gonna continue watching the show. I will just literally catch up with her scenes alone, and that is it. I mean, the days of me suffering through everybody else's bullshit on this show, they're gone. They're gone. The show would have to have a complete overhaul, and it would have to replace the showrunner for me to want to give it the time of day again in the way that I was, and the chances of that happening are 0. So here we are. Here we are. Okay, let me know how you're feeling about everything down in the comments section below. I know you guys have some strong opinions on this show. I do, much like myself. Okay.